Well, we are here for another episode of the Fox Den with my guest, Dr. Katherine Jackson, who goes often by Dr. J. She is based out of Chicago, Illinois, but she does a lot of distance coaching and therapy as well. So she is a board-certified neurotherapist and a licensed psychologist. So she's definitely a fellow mental health professional here who has quite a bit of certification. So I actually came to find her in a very interesting way on Facebook, and I rarely find guests there. Dr. J, I think that you were like a recommended friend on my friends list.
Wow, okay.
or you either were like you had a channel or something, and I added you from finding your Dr. J or your health and wellness channel. So it was something like that. I was like, wow, this is definitely some overlap here. Would love to hear more about what she has to say. So definitely glad I did. So what are some of the questions that you're getting the most in this pandemic? You've done, so for anybody out there, Dr. J has done a lot of Facebook Lives, which is very helpful. She's done a lot of interviews about like COVID-19 because people are looking for answers on that. And the thing is, there really are no easy answers. It's just a kind of an amplification of the stress people are getting anyway, just in a different way. What are some of the most interesting questions, or the ones that you find most relevant from all this, if you can think of any?
You mean like questions that people are asking me about how to deal with the pandemic?
Absolutely, yeah.
The most that I get, because parents, they're taking on a whole bunch of roles currently. And so like me, their work and home is in the same place, but then they have the added stress of kind of taking on a teacher role,
Right.
per se. And so trying to do that and manage all of what usually is taken care of by teachers during the day. And so parents ask for tips for that. And so that was one of the lives. I started with just the individual, and then I moved up to families, and then to parents, because the parents I think they have the most stress because they have the kids in the house with them. And so I get a lot of questions on how to manage things with the children. Even the ones that I've already worked with and they've gotten to a certain place, it seems like some of the kids have regressed a little bit in their progress from therapy. And parents are seeing that all day, every day in the home.
Yeah. Yes. So some boundary issues, right? And wearing multiple hats as a parent that you might not have.
Yes. Yeah. Lots of different roles that they didn't have before, and things they probably didn't even know about unless the teacher mentioned it to them in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's definitely a strain. So it really requires some creativity for how to de-stress and implement some self-care for everybody involved, to manage possibly new resentments from between parent and child. Hopefully not, but
yes. Yes.
yeah.
Resentments for couples too. So yeah.
That's a great point.
People are not used to being at home with each other this much.
No, they're not.
And we don't think about the fact that those breaks that we take, that ride to work, that ride from work, the time at work, that makes us better when we come home because we're not always on top of each other. So
yeah, we have a place to get rid of all that tension and some places to displace that. And then there's nowhere for that to go, like squeezing a balloon when everyone's together now. That's a good point. I wanted to ask, and I know I talked about this before I hit record. I asked you, I wanted to hear kind of a lengthier description of neurotherapy, or what that looks like, how you train brain waves, because I'm a real fan of that topic, and I miss working with that stuff. The equipment's so expensive for some of that.
It is very expensive to go through the path. Yeah. Yes, it is. And I'm still working on one part of it myself, but I think, well, I'll start with just kind of like an overview of just what it is, just like a little snippet of what neurotherapy is.
Right.
Neurotherapy is typically thought of as the use of neurofeedback. You can also use biofeedback, but you're looking at the brain and the way that it functions. It works for a multitude of different conditions, which is really nice. And sometimes people want to try it out so that they can either bypass or lessen the medication that they use. It works well with medication, but some people don't want to be on as much medication, and some people, especially parents, they don't want to put their children on medication. And so they try neurofeedback. And so what neurofeedback does, and I'm going to try to say this in an easy way, because the way that I say it, I usually have all kinds of charts and all kinds of things. And so I'm explaining it to patients and parents,
Right.
and it makes a lot more sense. But similar to like if you take any intelligence test or any standardized test, we fall on a spectrum, right? From high to low, and most people will fall in the middle. And so neurofeedback, we train the waves to fall within that middle range, which is the standard range. We start with something called the QEEG. So it's just a quantitative EEG. We just look at it, looking at the brain in a different way than the medical professionals look at the EEG data. And that tells us where we have dysregulation in the brain. And it also tells us where the strengths are in the brain too. So I think oftentimes a lot of neurotherapists will focus on the deficits, but I also like to let the parents and the patients know of where there are brain strengths. And so wherever there's dysregulation, though, wherever things are either way too high, so it may be that it's causing more stress or more distress, or if it's way too low, we see things more depressive symptoms, or your mood is really off, then we are trying to train that to the middle. And so that's where the more stable symptoms are. And so that's kind of like my small, short brief. It's much more in depth, but that's my brief.
No,
definition.
that's really good. I think that covers it, all of the important points. So it's so fascinating that the feedback part, just the sound or the visual that changes, that goes up or down based on our own brainwave performance, is so rewarding to the brain that if we focus on the picture that's moving or whatever, like a balloon. I remember some of the biofeedback stuff I used to use had a picture of a balloon. People would try to make it go higher. And just focusing on one's own body or mind as feedback that continues to, in like a positive feedback loop, accumulate, it's so powerful. People used to be afraid. I remember this back in the day when I was working as a neurofeedback tech. People would see the electrodes and they were afraid they would be painful and that the feedback was going to be like an electrical shock. They didn't understand it's just your brain's own activity. That's a common misconception that I would hear. It's like the most you get.
That's one of my misconceptions I was going to share. There you go.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Well, it's one of those things where the worst you get out of it is a bad hair day because the gel you have to use.
Yes.
I remember that too. People would.
Girls.
Yeah. That's hilarious. What got you so interested in neurofeedback? That would be a great story because it's not enough people know about that, by the way.
They don't.
Because it's not pharmacological.
They don't even know about it as a tool or as something that is out there. Everybody thinks of mental health as just the talk therapy. But for me,
now you're talking. Yeah.
Yeah. I could talk about that one for 2 hours alone. But
I know. Well, it's such a crappy misconception because I do a lot of EMDR for trauma work, and I've seen like such rapid progress in that versus just talking it out. It's like I have moved to a point where I prefer to just do stuff like that. And that's why I think it's great that business people, like clinicians such as yourself, have put so much emphasis on stuff that works and not just treading water in the status quo. But anyway, talk about how you came to neurofeedback.
You're going to laugh at it. But I've always been interested in the brain. It has not always been interested in me or has treated me as well as I've treated it. In fact, when I was working towards I can laugh at it and I can share this story now. When I was working towards my doctoral program, I actually had to retake the class for the brain. I took it the first time and they get and I got what they call a doctoral failure, which is really getting a C. You can't have too many C's. And an F, you're going to get kicked out of the program. But I had gotten a C, and so I had to retake that course. And when I took it the second time, I had what I felt like was a much better professor. And then I did much better with it. And I feel like everything with it stuck. Plus, I had studied things with the brain over time, even before that. Then I, fast forward, I graduate. I'm working towards my completion of my internship. And I had just finished the internship and was working on my starting my postdoctoral fellowship. And so at the place where I was doing all my training before becoming a licensed psychologist, they picked different tracks for everybody, or everybody has to pick a track. And I wanted the brain track, right? But another young lady, there were 4 of us in my cohort, and another young lady was set for that track. But then she took a postdoc someplace else. So she took and somewhere else. And she said before she went in to let them know, and I don't even think they know this story there. She said before she left that she was gonna leave and that I should go. So she went in to put in her notice that she was not going to stay for her postdoc. And I went a few minutes after and was like, I'm interested in this. And it just grew from there. I took all the training, all the certification. I provide the service. I do the EEGs, and this has become my main form of treatment for patients. So it's kind of funny that I started off hating it because of the class and was not slighted or slated to be the one chosen to do it. And so when something's for you, the universe will make a way for you. God would always make it happen.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? That's so fascinating. Yeah, I remember you told somewhat of that story on one of your other interviews that I listened to, and I thought,
I'm saying this story too many times.
No, it's great. So did someone in your PhD program introduce you to neurofeedback itself? Were they doing that at an academic level?
Yes.
Thank God.
Some of they had neuropsychology at my school. And so I took some of those courses. That one that I told you about was just one.
Yes.
And they had 2 ladies who were doing it at the practice at the time. And then I studied under her, and I still refer to her, consult with her with some of the tougher cases. And then I just loved it so much. I wanted anything that I love a lot and I start using with patients, I like to make it official. And so I did the actual classes and then the certifications and on and on.
Amazing. Yeah, I got my, I took the boot camp and have all the required hours for that. I just got to take the exam. I went the route of EMDR, if you know of that therapy a lot.
EMDR is great. I keep saying that I want to get to that at some point.
So I mean, the way I would put it, because I have experience in that, is I first learned neurofeedback and was doing that in graduate school because I was fortunate enough that one of the professors, very similar to your story. I mean, I was in a master's program, so it was not a PhD, but one of the professors was a neurofeedback business owner and a professor. So it's like that. She was wearing those 2 hats, and she was taking on interns, and I happened to be able to, move from one internship to another because one was ending and that one was beginning. So I put an application, did that, worked with a lot of patients, saw that it's not a placebo effect because people who had major problems that they'd had medication before and hadn't like placeboed out of, they hadn't willed themselves right out of it. Like with neurofeedback, if anything, they were coming in with a bias against it working. They're like, I've tried everything. Yeah. Let's see if this works. Very skeptical attitudes. And then amazing things happening, especially with things like, and I'm sure you can speak to this, like the foggy thinking with theta waves and with even delta waves for people who had kind of traumatic brain injuries, being able to train that down.
Yes.
And not be so groggy and have the what we call brain fog. That was exciting to me because that's such an epidemic now with junk food. And we can kind of pivot like with nutrition into that topic of people stoking that sort of foggy thinking. And we're all guilty of it, right? I love sweet tea. I'm from the South. I love caffeine and sugar. It's like, but we have to be aware of how much we're taking that in, because there's a crash and there's fog. What are some of the biggest nutritional challenges you've seen with, actually, no, I'm going to go back. We were talking about EMDR and neurofeedback. So neurofeedback, learning that, there's a very high learning curve. You have to learn all the brain spots. I mean, of course, there's helpful visual aids and everything, but EMDR, so once you have a good foundation of the brain, it's easier to learn EMDR, I think, because you understand what's going on when you're doing the eye movement, when you're administering that. And there's some really helpful tools now. A lot of people like the tactile stimulators that go back and forth and that have lights on them, because it's very grounding for people who dissociate. It's like they have a physical thing keeping them in the present that's kind of moving in their hands. So it's pretty good. I think you would like it.
Yeah, I've liked the base work. You know how you take those CE trainings
the
and
continuing ed units,
yeah.
CEUs.
I love it with that, and I keep saying I'm going to make it official. And there's actually the oldest psychologist at my practice. He's interested in it too. And I was like, okay, well now if I got a partner, we're going to make it work. So
yeah, it's somewhat cost effective too. I think it's certainly less. Oh my gosh, it's less than trainings in, I think, neurofeedback, like the boot camps, and even equipment is just wild. I love it. I mean, the Brain Master stuff was so futuristic. I love it.
And what I use currently, but I use the amplitude training. I can't remember what it was before that.
Yeah.
And then another, I'm losing the name of it, but another training too. But I think Brain Master is one of the leading ones. I'm not going to say it's the best of the best, but it's one of the leading ones now.
It is, and it's like sister company is the Stress Therapy Solutions, I think.
Yeah,
that one's a big one. I think they're the same thing, but just
and they have a lot of they do a lot of the information, giving out of the information too. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if you back to the nutrition or if we were going further.
Yeah, let's go there. That's great. Pet
peeves
that you have about nutritional messages in America or anywhere.
I don't know about pet peeves, but some of the biggest things that I see that people do that I think truly impact their brain. Of course, you mentioned the biggest one is the sugar.
Yes.
And then people will feel like they're eating healthy when they're eating some of these packaged foods, and it's not bad to have in moderation. I do them myself. I get vegan frozen meals because I can't always cook everything, but that can't make up the bulk of my eats, right? I have to cook things fresh and eat it that way. And so people think that they're eating healthy, but you're really, really kind of eating more junk food. It may be better than eating a bunch of potato chips and soda, but it's still not the best for you. And so one of the biggest things I see, other than the sugar, is the lack of eating fresh fruit and vegetables, whether it's raw or cooked. And that's going to feed the brain so much fuel and vitamins and minerals naturally that we all need. Most people are not even taking vitamins. So if you can consume it in what you're eating, then you're feeding your brain, and it's much healthier that way. And it'll help out with your mood and anxiety for people who stress out a whole lot.
That's a really great point. The packaged versus fresh debate. Yeah, that's. I understand on one hand people want they need to buy stuff that lasts in their freezer or whatever rationale there is for that, but also now look at how difficult it is to get fresh stuff to go outside your house and do anything. But it is important to be mindful of that. It's amazing how someone shared the other day on Facebook or something a picture of it was like a joke. I think it was like, look at how unhealthy these drinks are, even the naked juice, which I'm not trying to call them out, but it's like however many donuts worth.
Yes. It's way more sugar than you need to, and people usually, they're not looking at the fact that it's 2 servings or more. They're drinking that whole bottle in one sitting.
Yes.
That is it's natural sugar, but it's still sugar.
I think people the least mindful way of eating is when drinking your calories. So very sugary drinks that goes down easier, literally, and you can just not think about it and go into autopilot and drink it. I think that's one of the first things I think people can cut out that's helpful. It's like is mass amounts of soda, like you said. Soda, that's a big one. Oh my God.
Yeah. And even something as healthy as apple juice. It's good for you, but there's so many apples and all the sugar from that apple that goes into one serving of it. And just think, we give this to children all the time. Apple juice is something that goes with a child's lunch all the time. And it's so much sugar in apple juice. And we're just pushing that. And you really shouldn't have so much of it. More water,
Great
more
point.
natural juice in moderation too. So
Yeah, that's a really great point. I remember those barrel drinks that like the shape of a barrel, like in different colors. You know what I'm talking about? Those damn,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yes.
those plastic barrels.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's really healthy. 1% juice,
Yes.
99% um, liquid high fructose corn syrup, and of course, red dye number 9
Yes.
for added taste, or whatever the hell it was. The red dyes. Oh, those are
Yeah.
great. Oh my god.
But it
That's
tastes so
hilarious.
good, and it just really went to our brains and sent off those pleasure centers. Now
Yeah,
we know. Now we know better.
yeah, yeah. Thankfully. Oh gosh, that's hilarious. What do you think is it? Oh, I want to hear some of your, if you have any in mind, like favorite books that you like about trauma or about therapy in general, or just different authors, even different people in the field that you think are great.
Okay, well, not therapy per se, but I
Okay.
love. I have so many of his books on my shelf.
Who did you
Doctor
say?
Daniel Amen, Doctor
Yes.
Amen.
Okay. Yes,
Yeah,
the Amen Clinic. I love
yeah.
him. Yes.
Amen, Amen. I say Amen,
No,
Amen. I don't.
whatever. I hear so
Yeah,
many different ways of pronouncing it.
yeah.
Yeah, no, he is absolutely wonderful.
He is wonderful. I have a lot of his books, and I love the way he makes it very practical. I feel like some of the other writers who write about the brain is so um, clinical that no regular person could even understand it, and it makes it more difficult to tease out the parts and to give help to patients when you're working with them. It's not that I don't enjoy reading them, but Dr. He makes the brain really simple for everybody. Even parents pick up his book. So
Yeah, I knew somebody who went and got that workup from one of his clinics, and they get like
yeah.
a folder of where their brain waves
Hmm.
were and what kind of ADHD subtype they may have. Very
Yeah.
interesting stuff.
Yeah. He's huge on the SPEC. Is it
Spec
called the
scan.
yeah, scans? Yeah, he's huge on that. I was like, well, maybe one day I can afford this and know what's going on. It is very costly. And he opened up a center here somewhere in the Chicagoland area. So it's
No kidding. That's amazing.
mhm.
Yeah. I think the first time I heard about him was on a PBS pledge drive where I was like flipping channels. This was years ago, probably 10 years ago or more. And it was talking about, like, they kept cutting back to his speech about the different kinds of ADHD, like the ring of fire, that like hypo or hyperactivity across a ring in the brain. Like it looked like that on the SPEC scanner ring. It was very interesting stuff. I thought, wow, actually putting some biology, some neurobiology to work here to explain psychological symptoms. How great. So that's absolutely wonderful. The QEEG that you brought up, that's really an amazing thing that I don't think people hear about a lot. So the EEG is just seeing the brainwave activity, but the QEEG compares it to that normative database of
Yes.
like where it should be.
Hmm.
What is the hyperactivity in certain portions? Like, are you anxious? Do you have a lot of beta wave, high amplitude of that? And it puts it color maps, all that stuff was just really
Yeah.
great.
It is beautiful, and if anybody, people who can afford it, it is a nice thing to have, even if it's nothing major going on. It's just nice to know how your brain functions, and then you just think of how much you can do everything according to what your strengths are, and if you have any challenges, then you can work on that. It just is beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to have.
Let me ask you this, because I've actually heard this from some of my clients often, my practice, that some of their insurances would pay for that. And I thought that was becoming the norm. Can you tell me a little, like, just if insurance pays for neurofeedback, what that looks like now?
I feel like more insurance companies are picking it up because it is a big out of pocket cost if you're
Yeah.
insurance. cover it. And that's just being honest and telling the truth. Even when I first started, people had to put down a certain amount towards it. I think like $250, and not everybody has $250 to give towards it. And then
for
we
sure.
Amounts, but now it is being more covered by some insurance, but not all. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. No, it does. And I wouldn't expect you to know, because believe me, as a fellow clinician, I understand when clients ask me, well, how much of this is my insurance going to cover? Well, you may have to talk to a representative of your insurance. I don't necessarily know that. So I get it. I hope more covers it, because the research behind it is definitely sound.
Yeah.
There's a lot of proof for it. And it's very easy to measure, because that's what neurofeedback relies on, is measurement, for God's sake. So
I still think the insurance companies are trying to catch up to it and get the insurance, because the research to prove that it is a necessary thing. I still think it's a little bit of a fight, but it's getting better. In the years that I've been doing, it's not as bad as it was before.
Yeah, that's great. Tell us about your nonprofit, your nonprofit organization, because I didn't know you had one of those until recently.
Oh, it's Dr. J's Holistic Health and Wellness, and I did it to provide more information to more people, and not for a pay, just to be able to provide either psychoeducation on different things like nutrition, the brain, the importance of mental health, physical health, and how that impacts your mental health, and a whole bunch of other different, because not everybody can afford the information. I know we can do simple, like Google searches of some things, but if you can find most of what you need in one place, I thought that would make it a lot easier for people. And there's a wealth of different things that we can do without seeing a mental health professional that can help with some of these things. Like I had somebody on recently talking about food, somebody else who was a coach, like a physical trainer coach, and he's the director at a college, and talking about your physical health. And another person last year who was talking to parents about what things that they can do to ensure that their kids have a really good academic career. So just simple information sometimes to try to reduce some of that stress, and knowing where to find helpful tips to get through different parts of our lives.
That's absolutely awesome. I think that's such a wonderful philanthropic endeavor for you to get those messages out there. Somebody has to. So I also wanted to bring up just one of your role models that you mentioned in one of your interviews, Dr.
I feel like you know me more than I know myself.
Well, I try to, so I'm just full disclosure. Whenever I ask anybody onto the show, I really try to make sure I've done my homework, because people often don't like, it's different when you have somebody who's a therapist like you, whose temperament and whose, compassion for people is going to be higher, but getting the same questions is probably not, you probably want to talk about something different. At least that's been my experience with people. Mm-hmm. Joy Harden Bradford, the Therapy for Black Girls author. Let's talk a little about just the disparity between where the therapeutic milieu is in terms of kind of its emphasis on certain demographics versus others, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
How people of color are being neglected by the therapy milieu, the culture of therapy, unique challenges, let's say.
I feel like being African American myself, being a person of color myself,
sure,
I feel like one of the things is the view of mental health within the Black community or communities of color, and how we generally think of it as. So this came to me. I'm going to just speak from the Black perspective, or the African American perspective.
Please.
Black covers a multitude of things, like Haitian Americans and Jamaican, and their story may be a little bit different than African Americans. So I'm gonna stick to what I know fully.
Sure.
It does apply.
Very fair.
Some of it applies to all the different people of color, but I'm gonna hone in on just what I know from my own experience. So
very fair. Yep.
So with African Americans, a lot of our notions came because, and we needed it because of slavery. So we had to be strong. We had to handle a lot of things on our own, and so we didn't reach out for help. And that had become like that message of strength has become kind of like our shield, our way of just kind of doing things. So so then when we get, we fast forward over the years, and what we have now is that we have a wealth of resources. We don't have to, we don't have to do everything on our own, right? But we still hold on to that notion of we should have to handle all our problems on our own. And there is nothing, I talked to even my own pastor about this, but we lean a lot on the church, on the Black church. So we will go to the pastor often for things that we should go see a mental health professional for.
Sure.
Therapists like myself and other ones that I know personally, we partner with and we work with the Black church so that they know when it's too much and when they need to send people out for help with an actual mental health professional. Plus, we cannot overtax our pastors. They got a lot to do in their roles. And so I think that's where it came from. And we think, the whole world, I think, thinks this. I don't think this is just a Black thing or an African-American thing. But a lot of people think that when you need therapy, that means that you're crazy. And I think these are just a couple of things that hinder people of color from getting the help that they need. And that there's nothing wrong. So when there is, clearly.
Yeah, I have to say, I think part of the therapeutic milieu, I'm just going to say it from a male perspective, I think it can be very off-putting, or it can seem somewhat trite to men and to anyone who kind of has been taught that they need to keep a stiff upper lip or be stoic or in some way maintain their strength, right? It can feel like a trap. It's like you're going to talk about feelings and yoga pants and crystals and stuff, and there's nothing wrong with those things, but you got to be aware. For Caucasian male and female therapists, it's like when you're approaching a community that doesn't necessarily talk, and I'm not speaking monolithically, like it's all what, like you said, there's many different there's many different concerns across different people of color communities, but the whole namaste yoga approach isn't going to hit everybody, right? You got to make mental health, you've got to make it applicable. And it's like, this does not mean you're weak. It doesn't mean that you're going to be, outed as being a weak person or not tough enough. At least in my perspective, it seems like, just from an outsider who I can see some of the tone deaf messaging that seems very much like something people, and some mental health stuff, not all, but it can seem in the counseling world like something people would say, oh, I don't want to be seen carrying a book that's just all flowery and everything. What are people going to think? Especially, again, potentially with males. And even like, that's just what I've seen. It's like, that's not going to connect. You've missed, like, there's an opportunity here for better messaging.
And I love the way that you're even, like you said, as an outsider, that you're even touching on this. That is I think a lot of people who are on the outside don't want to talk about it. And so, or even bring up just the basis of that. And
right.
Which brings another thing you say, like in the community, is not being able to find enough people that looks like you. And especially if you're a Black male, there are Black male therapists. It's like a unicorn. I worked with one once before, and I was like, oh my God. He was the only one and the only Black male therapist that I have ever worked with. And in my doctoral program, there was only one Black male who was becoming a psychologist. So it's a very hard thing. Some people don't feel comfortable talking to people of a different race. So that's another hindrance.
100% it is. And I don't blame them. if you think that there's not going to be an understanding or connection with what your unique struggles in the community are, I mean, just to call that out. So no, I come from working in a community mental health setting. I spent quite a few years in that kind of demographic where you get a lot of people who are underserved, who are maybe on Medicaid, and there's all kind of racial and demographic, different class structure stuff within that. You get people who maybe had money before, they're on Medicaid now because they can't afford insurance and they had something, they made, a horrible financial downturn, or you get people who are chronically in that generational poverty who've never been out of it. And so there's a real gamut there of people. And the good news is things like EMDR are going to work for every community, but you have to phrase it in a way that appeals, right? You don't use the same language with one client that you do with another. And that's part of becoming a therapist, is why being a therapist isn't just talking.
Yeah, right.
It's being an ambassador for mental health. Like, you have to wear that title, or else you should probably maybe go get trained in it and step aside for a minute. It's just my opinion on it.
Or maybe you needed to be in a different profession. I know there were people
bingo
in my program when I was finishing my studies that I like, why is nobody calling this out? This person really shouldn't be in this profession. So that's just me.
That's some fire. I agree with that.
We need better gatekeepers in mental health. We need better gatekeepers.
Well, and now we're getting into this kind of scholastic industrial complex, I call it, where schools aren't going to say no to easy money a lot of the time. A lot of master's programs are pay to play, where you pay a certain amount and you get your degree.
Right.
And so they're not standing up and saying, hey, you realistically may not be a good fit for this. And, I'm not going to get it too far into that. There are a lot of great schools out there, and there are some diploma mills, and you just have to be aware of which is which. And thankfully, there's a lot of different kind of rating systems that you can see where people will call out schools like that, where maybe they got a degree and weren't able to get a good job out of it, or there was a negative connotation, like the school was clearly just grinding people through and not vetting them. But I think even with higher profile school, you got to ensure that you're not admitting people just for financial concerns or because they look good on paper, because that's not enough.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody can call themselves a life coach. In the state of Colorado, where I'm operating out of right now, and I'm about to move very shortly this summer to Atlanta, which is awesome because that's where that psychologist that you were talking about
yes, she is.
Yeah, Joey Bradford, which is great. But Atlanta's a great place. I'm gonna be moving back south. But in Colorado, I didn't know this until I've known it for about 10 years now. But not 10 years, maybe like 8. Like since I went to, I know it just flies. It's funny how that goes in the profession. But anyone can call themselves a registered psychotherapist if they just register with the state. I don't know if you're aware of that. There's some state, like all you have to do, I think they might change it. It's like an unlicensed registered psychotherapist. But you can play with language. People can do these things where they don't have any schooling, but they call themselves a certain title. And I mean, honestly, life coach is a big thing now. I see it on Facebook all the time, people talking about career coaching. Well, anyone can say they're a career coach. All you got to do is tell somebody some words.
Yeah. It's a shame. It kind of
talk about gatekeeping.
Waters down things when you can do that. Okay, I'm not going to get on that soapbox.
No, I know. Well, I think it's good for listeners to know, if you're looking for mental health, look for a licensed psychologist, look for a licensed therapist, look for licensed in the word. And if you go to a mental health agency, you may work with someone who has a master's and is working toward a license, fine, whatever. But just the track toward licensure is very important for people to realize. It shows the dedication to helping people. If you want to tell people stuff that could alter their lives forever, the least you can do is go to school for it.
True.
Full stop.
And certifications are on top of a license. So I think sometimes people say, oh, they're certified. It should be on top of some other type of training.
Absolutely.
It shouldn't be, I mean, for coaching, sometimes certifications and coaching is standalone for just the coaching field. They have a whole different thing. But if you're talking about going to a therapist of any kind, they do have to be licensed. They should have gone through some schooling, and you can verify all this stuff online with the state where they practice. So, that's something for your audience to know, and everything else is extra.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm so radical now with it. I think that people should get trained in something like EMDR and neurofeedback concurrently or right after getting licensed, because grad school is such a grab bag of different therapies. Like, oh, here's a little psychodynamic, here's a little narrative therapy, here's a little solution focused brief. What are you gleaning and holding on to as your prime modality? A lot of people don't know that graduating. It's not their fault necessarily. It just, you have to go that extra step, and it sucks because then if you really want to get paid back for that, you gotta kind of hustle and be street smart when it comes to marketing. So it's a whole thing. But for clients, just be aware. Just ask your possible provider, like when you're scouting out therapists, what's your main modality? If they can come out with something like EMDR or internal family systems or somatic experiencing, which is another great one, then you got somebody who has a particular path and that they're going to be empirically guided, we would say.
Yes. And I think there are differences, but everybody, like consumers, they don't always know that.
Nope, they don't. What is, that's exactly right. What is one of your favorite tests to give as a psychologist, or something that you can do? Because I know in one of your interviews you talked about giving like the autism or the ADHD testing, which is really cool.
I don't know that I have I have a least favorite, which
What's
is
that?
the Rorschach.
Oh.
My favorite is the EEG because it is the brain based one, and I also do. There's another one. I'm drawing a blank on it. I can see when I'm doing it with people, but it's another brain based test, and I usually do them together. The EEG, and it has a C to it, but I do them together because it gives me a more complete version view of the brain functioning, and then I figure out what else I need to do from there.
Well, the Rorschach test is a projective test. It's not like the validity to it is very spurious from what I remember studying in my appraisal class.
Yes.
In grad schools, it's like those interpretive tests, they're very fun and they're very cinematic. Like you see them on movies and it's like very romantic and mysterious. People sometimes like a little bit of that with their therapy, and I get that. But I mean, that, like the thematic apperception test too, the TAT, you remember that one?
Yes.
Like, okay. I mean, it just like if your brain is negative or you've been, like you can look at it and somebody with trauma is probably going to identify an ambiguous situation negatively because they go into fight or flight, hyper arousal more. But I could have found that out by asking some really good intake questions.
Yes.
So
I had the children's version of the TAT. It gives me more because kids they're not going to be as verbally expressive.
That's a beautiful point. Yeah.
But I don't like, I didn't, that test was probably second, but I hated, the Rorschach was just crappy to score. I hated it. If I could just ask the questions and look at it and just kind of come up, and use it, more subjectively like that, but in the information, kind of like extra data, then it would have been fine. But the score, when I got past having to give that one, I was pretty happy. So.
Yeah. I would imagine that you would be. Gosh, that's a wild one. And what do you think about the Enneagram or things like that are kind of fun little personality tests?
I think what you just said, they're fun. Personality tests. I don't know what else.
Great.
So much more past that. Yeah.
Do you give out the MMPI a lot? You do that?
No. Yeah. I don't know. I probably should be more on those tests, but it's not my favorite either. But it does give a lot of good information, so I use it.
So right before we hopped on here, I sent out a tweet asking people, what questions would you like me to ask my guest? And somebody had a pretty good one. Well, there was one that we could easily answer quickly, and there's also the role of deliberate practice on neuroplasticity. So what this means, I would surmise, is those brain training games or how to develop neuroplasticity. What are your thoughts?
On using those games?
On anything for neuroplasticity. What is the best practice for that, I guess, would be?
Oh, I don't want to say what the best practice is. I'm just comfy, cross legs right here. what the best, because everybody's different. Everybody's an individual. So I don't know that I could say one best practice, but if you're going to do any of those brain games, they do help with the neuroplasticity. They can help, especially with things for your frontal lobe functioning and memory and concentration. I think a lot of them are good for that focus. But you want to find one that truly has a lot of good research behind it. So some of the ones that are online, they may be more fun just to do. But there may not be a lot of research behind it to prove that what they say it's doing, it actually does. And so you want to make sure that you're getting one that has had a lot of research. In fact, I do cognitive remediation, which is a similar version of some of those things that people can just find on the internet. But that one has been developed by I believe he's a psychologist. He may even be a neuropsychologist. And he's done so much research on it. So.
Well, one of them, the Brain HQ, there's been studies that have shown that one works for things like lumosity.
Yeah.
And other brain training things like that. Those don't have as much, like you get good at that particular type of game, but that doesn't necessarily generalize to the whole scope of executive functioning. So anything like that, I'm skeptical of. I mean, to plug your business, I think the best thing to do is probably get some good neurofeedback and get your brainwaves where you want them to go. But everybody can't afford that. I get it. Insurance needs to up their game and fix that, because what would you rather do? Be on, Zoloft or something for years, or get some brain training? Now, there's nothing wrong with medication. I am not an anti-meds person by any stretch. I will say, when there's an alternative that's just as good, though, that's when you want to look at it. Like if there's something like schizophrenia, it's like, we know meds are best for that. You're not going to think your way out of that necessarily. But for things like, you've got some reactive depression that's not biochemical, that may come from something situational. It's like doing some brain training, doing some behavioral activation therapy, getting out there. Like those are some great venues that people need to hear more about. So
we just need to know more about what is available. So my thing is making sure people know what all is available. And then when you meet with a professional, you guys can collaborate and then say, this is the best path for you. Because sometimes I think over information can be harmful, and lack of information is harmful too. And I don't think people know enough of all the different type of resources that are out there. And then sometimes I get people coming in and they've read all of this stuff, and then we have to kind of just streamline, like this is where we kind of need to start, and this will be like one of the best places to get going for you or for your child. And so you got to be flexible in this whole process. You want to know what's out there and know what's available for you, but you don't want to be so knowledgeable that you go in and you tell the therapist what to do. You guys have to have a discussion on that. And part of that discussion will be the therapist's intake and assessment. And then they can help guide you on that. And they will tell you why. It's not that you can't do some of these other things that you found. Maybe you'll go to them down the road. I just feel like I get not the gamut, the either end of the spectrum of people. So.
Yeah. Well, and you want in the middle. I get it. Yeah, you can kind of tell the personality types. If somebody's really type A, it's like, well, I want to make sure I'm getting the most out of this I can. It's like, okay, you will. We got to do some prep work, though. That's part of it. Part of the approach. Yeah. Wow. I think neurofeedback stuff is going to get more cost effective. Like if the price is going to go down and the technology is going to get even better. Have you had a chance to play around with the Muse headband at all? The MUSE Muse headband?
I feel like I want to say, but don't quote me on it because I play with so many different things and I go to.
It's like Geordi's visor from Star Trek.
I feel like I did. But I don't, like I said, don't quote me on it because I go to neuro conferences and they have all cool stuff at these conferences. And so I play with all the different stuff, and I feel like I did with something.
It's like it goes across the occipital lobe and it rests on the temporal lobes. So it's just like a reverse visor. I mean, the thing is, that technology is so new. Like the reviews on Amazon are a mess. It's like overall 4 out of 5 stars, but people talking about how it won't connect and doesn't read the brain, whatever. But I think I think they're on version 2 now. Once we get higher and higher with that, it'll be really exciting to see what people can have at home to help with this stuff.
Yeah. It was funny you were saying as it becomes more, like the insurance picks it up and it becomes more available. And I was like, well, there's talks of having more of it for home. And so and then you came up with, this device. My fear with it is that people will know how to properly use it.
That's a great point.
And so if they're going to come out with things, I'm all for it. But I still think some of these treatments still need some connection to a trained professional to help guide people when they have it at home. That's my, because then I feel like some of the consumers, some of the patients, they'll start to use things and they may not use it properly. And so that's one of my biggest concerns about where it might go in the future.
Absolutely. No, that's a great point. So one thing, I'm jogging my memory here on what the notes I took for our interview today. One big thing that really, what?
You got a lot of notes.
Yeah. Yeah, you can kind of tell my personality when it comes to clinically. I try to document. I try not too much because that could be a liability too, right? But just enough. But one of those things, one of the things that matters a lot to you is spirituality, and I think that's great that you're really open about that. And you even, and this is close to my heart as someone who specializes in men's issues. Now, obviously, I see men and women, and more women than men, because demographically, that's who comes into therapy a lot. But I would say on my end of who I see, it's actually pretty even, because I get a lot of referrals for people who want to talk to a guy who are maybe embarrassed to talk about very sensitive issues with women. Like you were going to, saying like someone who would prefer to go to someone of their same race, like that kind of thing, like same gender. But you have posted a lot on Facebook about a men's Bible study from Jody McPherson. I think that's wonderful that you care so much about helping men to get some treatment and help. So talk a little bit about that, about your spirituality and your passion for that.
I don't hit people over the head with my spirituality. That's for one. Right. So if anybody hears this interview, I will not just hit you with God and Jesus.
Exactly.
To bring it up, and then if that's where they want to go, then I go with it. I have an actual Black male patient currently who, that's his whole thing. We use spirituality in almost everything that we talk about with him, and I welcome that, and I like it. I just feel like I'm just a spiritual being, so I like to bring that up. But if I don't, then the most that I do for patients, and I think I said this in one of my lives, is that I pray for my patients. If they don't want to talk about it, that doesn't mean I'm not going to still do what I can on my end, but I just try to be respectful of it as far as spirituality is. I think when we're connected to a higher being, we often fare better too. And that's just been my experience when I work with different patients. The ones who have more of a spiritual grounding seem to do much better than the ones who don't, or who identify as atheists. And there's nothing wrong with it if you want to identify that way, but I just feel like they do a lot better. They have a stronger grounding. I hope that answers your question.
No, it definitely does. I think there's a lot of key takeaways there. First of all, like you said, and I'll underline that too, as someone who personally has faith, I professionally have worked with a wide range of clients, and some of them want to explore it and some of them don't. And the beautiful thing is, in our intake at the agency where I work, there's this question, like, what are your cultural factors? What is your spirituality? It's very open-ended. So when you gather the information of, oh, I don't really want to explore that, or, oh, I really do, I want to reconnect with that, my childhood faith, or I want to explore what went wrong, or I felt really betrayed by God or by the church or whatever, you kind of have a direction to go where you know what's going to infringe on client rights. You obviously stay away from that, or what they want to explore. So that's key. And another thing is, I think it's very interesting. We go in these waves when it comes to the therapy profession, right? Like of what we're discovering and rediscovering. I spoke to Donald Robertson, who wrote this book, How to Think Like a Roman Emperor, on a past podcast. And it's about Stoicism. And he talks about like how in his experience, a lot of atheist clients or, enthusiasts for Stoicism cling onto that because it really leans into your values. And it's something that they can use as a value framework But so what I think you're getting at is this importance of values and virtue in therapy. And like we walked away from that when it came to a lot of CBT and stuff that's just very atomized and kind of just, oh, we'll call out your cognitive distortions or these interventions that, well, where's the grounding in? What is it that, why does it matter? The why. For people with spirituality, there's that why already plugged in. If you don't have that, you can still develop it, but you maybe have to be really intentional about it. That's all. And just say, like, I care about community, or I care about honor or dignity, or, you know, assertiveness, or my rights, or whatever it is. But people I notice who have chronic kind of dysthymic presentation, not always, but sometimes if people are kind of adrift and feel blah, there hasn't been that clarification of what they really care about. I don't know if you've experienced kind of the same thing.
Yeah, it's pretty similar. And I just have to, that's where the clinical training comes in. We have to respect what they want and need, right, and give it to them they want and need. And so if they're not spiritual beings, I can fully help somebody who doesn't identify with anything spiritual per se, or who even identify as atheists. It just comes a whole different set of how I address helping them versus somebody who already has that spiritual grounding.
Yep, absolutely. Tell us about your podcast. What's the name of it? Where can we listen to it?
It is it's anywhere that you hear podcasts, you can listen to it. Okay. Google, Spotify, iHeartRadio, I don't know, everywhere.
What's the name of it again? Remind me.
It's called Your Holistic Way with Dr. J. And so this is me going beyond just the talk therapy, and I introduce a lot of those other alternative things that people can do to help them stay, stabilized with and it's just a monthly podcast because I'm pretty busy. I can't be doing weekly. You guys are great who do the weekly, or people do more. But I do monthly, and I try to focus on one big topic. Sometimes I have guests, and sometimes I speak on my own. So
that's great. No, I think that's a great way to do it. I keep saying that I'm going to have to cut back, but I keep getting great guests, so I'm fine with that. Like, and the editing is very easy for stuff like this. Like, I'm probably not going to have to edit this a lot at all because, I mean, boom, boom, boom. We're hitting the big issues. It's what matters. So, wonderful stuff. Okay, I'll be sure to link to that in the description on the podcast of what the name of yours is. People can find it. It's good to discuss those holistic things because people just don't have any idea what's out there a lot of the time.
Yeah, and I don't think people realize they have a lot of tools in the home already or around them that they can use to help with things. This doesn't mean that it replaces a therapist. It means that these are some other things that you can do in addition to that, or in between sessions, or after you've gotten to a good place and you want to continue to stay nice and stable with how you feel.
Give us an example of those. That's a good segue.
An example,
few, maybe.
Well, nutrition. We talked about that already. How you eat is one of those holistic things.
Yeah.
Another holistic thing, like just breathing. Breathing is free, but people don't realize how much if we control the breath, how that can alter how we feel, how we're thinking, slowing down all those racing thoughts. People laugh at me every time I try to talk to them about deep breathing and practice the deep breathing at home and do this, and if you want to take deep breathing even further, deep breathing and movement are both encompassed in yoga. So that's something more holistic, something free oftentimes that you can do. And you don't have to go to therapy for, eons and eons if you're doing the other work in addition to the talk with your therapist.
Great. Brilliant way of putting that. I think people can kind of think with yoga, either for people who are Christian and have been told yoga is of the devil, which it's not. You can do poses and you can do breath work without doing any kind of spiritual worship stuff. And you can even put it with your own spiritual tradition. So that's a myth. And number two, another big myth I think with yoga is like, oh, you have to be dedicated and do it for hours a day. No, you don't. You can learn it a bit at a time. That's actually a big impediment, I think, to a lot of therapeutic modalities is people like, oh, I have to invest a lot of time in it. Number one, you have to invest time in your mental health anyway. It's just how much and how often and in increments. And number two, it is very easy to enter that. Yoga doesn't have to be the hardest poses. You don't have to go into that. You can do the more relaxing ones that are very parasympathetic system activating, that calm your sympathetic system and shut it down. So what have been some of your favorite articles that you've written or outlets that spoke with you for different topics? Because you've got a few articles, obviously. One of them was about classical music.
Over 70 different
I know
have been featured in them.
Yeah.
And so my favorite is probably going to be a weird one to highlight. People probably be like, "Oh, Oprah is my favorite," or because of the place where it's posted. But my favorite was one that I did with a journalist named Christy Farr. I hope I'm pronouncing her name right. But it was for an article in the Washington Post that she did on sexting. And the more we become a technology-based society, the more this becomes a problem with teens and younger kids too. And I've had to work with too many young girls who have gotten caught up in that and not being aware that we should not send pictures, to boys, or that if somebody sent you a picture and then you wanted to gossip about that person and you send it to a whole bunch of others, now we're getting ourselves into a lot of trouble. And so that was my favorite interview because it's a topic that is not talked about enough, but it is something that is happening too much with young people. It's not just the girls either, but the girls have the biggest impact. A lot of times boys can send pictures and boys can do things and they seem like a stud for doing it. We girls can send things and then we are shamed for a long time. Girls have to switch schools and then it catches back up to them at the new school and it's almost like they can't get away from it. So it's one of my favorite topics to kind of talk about with teens because they're just not aware of how much of an impact this will have on them and throughout the rest of their lives.
It's the perfect storm of limbic system, low brain development. No offense intended. Up till 25, people's frontal lobes are growing, and even probably beyond that. So you've got that factor, and then you've got this technology that is literally life-changing. And so you have low inhibition, high risk behavior, like high in high consequence behavior, because like as you just said, I mean the ramification, like the potential distribution of child porn charges for teens themselves distributing it of them. The laws are also not, I think that's the third element, is the laws have not caught up to this technology. So you have bad teen behavior, too much technology, weird legal limbo twilight zone territory. It's better to stay safe. And of course, easier said than done with kids who feel kind of a high stakes pressure to get their gratification met and to prove to others, I'm cool, or I'm, prove your dedication. If someone is very manipulative, it's like, don't you love me enough to send pictures? That kind of narcissistic manipulation too. Yeah. Wow. That is a great, I'll have to take another look at that article. I think you sent me that one. It was really good. But it's a very taboo subject too. And it's a difficult one for parents to address with their kids, for anyone to address with teens, really. It's another one of those things like drugs and alcohol that have become a sort of perverse rite of passage where you're just going to experience it, and it's how you reply that makes all the difference, how you respond to it.
And it's like so many things in the past. You make one decision and it changes your whole life. You could the sex registry as a sex offender for sending a picture.
I know, it's ridiculous.
And it has so many ramifications for teens. So I really enjoyed being able to share that. And she just kept asking me, because normally some of the journals, they'll just ask you for a little bit of information. You give them a little blurb. You might make it in, you may not make it into the feature.
Article,
but she wanted a lot, and I got to fully share what I would share, like if I was giving a whole talk to a group of teens on it.
Love that.
That's my favorite. So,
do you see any negative habits or anything that lifestyle gurus or unlicensed people who are well-intentioned or maybe even malintentioned, but Do you see any bad mental health advice out there that you can think of on the top of your head that's a pet peeve for you?
Bad mental health advice.
There's a lot of it.
There's so much. I'm trying to think of one.
So I would say this idea of, well, this is going to require some real sensitivity here, but this idea of everything needs, like, no matter what, you need to kind of barricade yourself off and self-care over doing new things. And let me be clear, like, don't re-traumatize yourself. Trauma-informed therapy is very important. It's what I specialize in, for God's sake. But I also think you get a lot of people talking about kind of just stay in your comfort zone. It's okay. They don't use that language, but that's what the message that comes across. Have you kind of encountered that, where the answer is usually just, oh, just read a book and go sit and ignore whatever's going on, or don't try? No, you have to do a little bit at a time to desensitize yourself, not jump in, but not avoid, because you end up agoraphobic that way.
And that was going to go to that kind of plays into mine. If it doesn't serve you, get rid of it. Yes, to some degree. But sometimes we have to learn how to deal with things that are uncomfortable. We have to be able to learn the skills to be able to deal with things that are difficult. We can't just cut everybody out of our lives every time it doesn't serve us or it causes a little bit of discomfort. So that's one, like, bad mental health advice that people will say, just get rid of it. You never learn how to deal with anything different. You're always running from and avoiding anything that comes up if you do it that way. So,
well, and if you do, that's brilliant. That's exactly right. I see that kind of stuff. Twitter is really guilty of that. Facebook is. Any social media outlet where somebody can post a nice picture and a caption, and it's very intuitively gratifying to get validation for pleasure-seeking avoidance behavior. So, to put that mildly, in different terms, it's this idea of gratification overall. If your relation, and where I see this playing out and where you see the implicit metaphors getting set up and perpetuated, is this online dating schema of swipe left, swipe right.
Yeah.
Your man sucks, or your girlfriend sucks. Go swipe some more, find a better model, find a very objectifying behavior. There is no way to avoid objectifying online. You are clicking, someone has been distilled into a picture, an object. That is a root problem. And you see sites like Hinge trying to say, oh, well, we want you to delete the app as soon as possible. And the running joke in the commercials, very well done commercials, by the way. It's like the little logo for Hinge, the dating service. Have you seen it? And it's set on fire. It's mutilated in various ways. It's like, our whole goal is that you don't have this app anymore. That's good messaging. And I think they're pretty forward thinking with that. But a lot of these services by nature suck you in and keep you searching, because it's the thrill of the game, the thrill of seeing who likes you. And it sets up this metaphor of, if you don't like exactly how you're being treated at any given time, even if it's because you did something and you're being held accountable, just go back to the pool, go back to the dating pool and pull out another catch.
Never learning how to deal with anything.
No, you're not.
Nobody's going to be a perfect anyway. So you're just going to keep having to switch out forever.
Yes,
and
which some people do.
Just figuring out, finding the best person for you, and then figuring out how to deal with some of the things that you don't like about that person, and they doing the same with you, because you're not perfect either. They will have to figure out how to deal with some of your less than perfect ways. So,
well, everybody has flaws, and it's how we overcome that. And again, with spirituality, there's an ethos in there of everyone is fallen from grace. We all have different things to work through. We need mercy, charity, grace, all those terms. And you can have that if you're not Christian. You can be realistic and say nobody's perfect. So, and really at that point, like, it's like there's going to be people's entire learning histories that you have to come across. Like, when couples therapy is really just helping people's pasts to play well together, from my experience. I choose to purposely work with individuals with heavy trauma, because there's so much direct intervention with that. Like, with couples, everybody's got to be dialed in the same level. It's got to,
couples and families, actually.
That's even more. That's even more complex. A lot
more difficulties if you can't get everybody kind of on the same page. And I've had couples say, I don't want to work on that. So.
Well, and that's usually, you know, where it's kind of where what you need to work on. It's like when you've got certain muscles or something, like when you're training that hurt more, unless it's like injury related. But if it's like you just don't like that's an underdeveloped part of your fitness regimen. Like you don't do leg day. It's like you're gonna have to do leg day sometime, for God's sake.
Yeah, I'm stealing that.
Do it.
I'm using it with the families and the couple.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Oh, you don't want to do this, but sometimes we gotta have leg day.
One of the big. You what?
You can't just have ab days.
No, you can't. Not just the glamour muscles. Yeah. Well, and but one thing you hit on there is like with family stuff. I was going to say it gets really damaging, and this is very serious because this creates a whole new generation of trauma. This is the biggest thing for complex PTSD is consistent developmental trauma, neglect, abuse by a parent. So you get like, if you have that metaphor, just throw back whatever you don't like, whoever you don't like, you become a parent and your kid doesn't do what you want, which spoiler, that's inevitable. It's like, oh God, what message are you going to send to your kids with that?
Right.
And how are they going to perpetuate that and feel unloved and create a whole nother generation? It's a terrible idea, but it's necessary for us to look at what the outcome is of this. You have to fit my perfect mold paradigm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's the danger. We really went off on a tangent on that one.
I like to have fellow mental health professionals on because I think that we can go on those tangents and they're very adaptive because we can bring that clinical awareness that what seems good in the short term is maladaptive to a heavy degree in the long term. It really is.
Yeah. And it's okay to use some of these things short term.
Of course.
Just to get through something or to get through a situation.
Yes.
Or just because like I had a weird text message come through this morning. I had to avoid it.
Sorry about that. Just kidding.
I avoided it. And I said, I'm going to process that and deal with it later. So that was to get me through so that I can be prepared and my freshest so that I can talk to Mr. Fox and not have that crap on my mind.
Well,
right.
Thank you.
And so that's okay. But then I have to go back to it. I can't just say, I'm going to avoid that altogether. Forget that person. I'm not going to deal with that ever again. We just can't teach ourselves that. That is an unhealthy behavior.
It is unhealthy. That's a brilliant way of putting it. And that's like with EMDR preparation, we teach people that when they contain
really telling this EMDR, I'm going to go look in programs after I take off this.
Please. So make sure they're EMDRIA, so EMDRIA approved, because that's the EMDR International Association, EMDRIA, they just pronounce it as a word. Make sure they're approved and that it's the mandatory stuff to then say you're certified, because some of the PESI presentations you pay for and it's a 2-day training, but you can't actually legally like say I'm an EMDR therapist after that. So that's a bummer.
Cool. Thank you. That's good to know. I would have started with like PESI and just integrated it, but then tried to see what else I could do to be certified. So that's good to know.
Well, because they'll teach you some exercises that you can do already that you don't even have to be EMDR trained in, like preparation skills. To do the actual protocol that has the research behind it and that's considered EMDR, you need to have a basic training, which is like 6 days. So usually what happens is that the trainers will break it up into a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then wait a few months. Then you'll have part 2 of a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then you have like 10 hours of supervision that are integrated that you can take advantage of. And then that all comes within a certain bundle. So there's also a lot of places out there that will offer discounts for people who work for nonprofits. You run one, so you could probably get those discounts. And it's just, you learn a lot. And then you can start saying, I'm an EMDR therapist. Now you have to get certified to claim that. And then I'm a consultant in it. So I want to start an EMDR training and actually teach clinicians. But for obvious reasons, that's been on hold for a little bit as I've kind of adapted to telectherapy because I was going to do which is not that big. I mean, I've been doing this with people, the Zoom stuff, man, for about a year with podcasts. So I'm pretty adept with it. But I actually think you could do an EMDR training over that, a basic training, but it's a lot of fun to do it in person. And so, but anyway, no, but one of the skills is this container skill. And you imagine putting whatever you're upset about, the thoughts, images, body sensations, emotions into this jar, whatever container you have. And you tell yourself, okay, I'm going to deal with it later. I'm going to put it away for now. And so it's just exactly what you're saying. I'm not going to deal with this text message or this annoying situation now, but I'm not going to suppress it or repress it. So it's that good balance there. The paradox is, I've seen this a lot, the paradox being that people who tend to be very merciful or get taken advantage of are the empaths, if you want to use that term. It's an overused term, but you can use
now
it.
It is, yeah.
But one of the people who have a high degree of empathy thinking, oh, well, I'll just, I can't avoid this, and I can't, everyone's got problems or no one's perfect. And then they accept outright abuse. That sucks, because those are the people who often listen to the part of, we'll give people a chance. And then people who won't take anything or any flaws, could stand to hear that. But their mental filter tells them not to listen to that. And so you have to get to that part, and that impediment to learning that other people have rights. And it's like, then you're getting into some antisocial or maybe borderline or narcissistic impediment there, which brings me to another question. One of the audience, one of my followers asked about the difference between antisocial personality disorder and psychopathy, which I know the difference between that. I'm sure you do too. Let me make sure that's the question.
I was going to say, that's a deep question.
What was it? Do you want to riff on that?
Not really.
Okay, I'll take that one. It's just basically, it's interesting. We've gone to a diagnostic system.
That one is so deep.
It's what?
That one is so deep.
Yeah, it is. Well, so psychopath isn't used anymore. That's a characterological judgment on your character. Antisocial personality disorder is a judgment on your behavior.
And it's an all-out diagnosis too.
Well, yeah, it's a real one. It's a real diagnosis versus kind of psychopathy. Psychopath is this term that gets invoked in popular culture, but we don't use it clinically. It's just not. It's not a billable code. Antisocial personality disorder is.
That is that was a heavy question. I'm sorry to your audience member.
That's fine. Well, so that's totally fine. Neuroplasticity. People are really interested in neuroplasticity. We kind of went over that a little bit. Is there anything that you would add about that? We just talked about it, and I'll link to Brain HQ is a very good game. Talk a little bit more about that or what is it? The cognitive restructure. What did you call it that you do?
Cognitive remediation.
Yes.
Yes. Like neurofeedback, it is a brain-based training. It is usually specifically for ADHD, memory, focus, attention, all those kind of things. So that's why I said more of the frontal lobe functioning.
Right.
So there's a collection of different tasks or games that you do, and it's training different areas of your brain to strengthen it, to build up your memory, or to help you to focus and attend, and to help people remember different types of information especially for children who have a hard time taking in and remembering information that's presented in school. This is building up the areas of your brain to be able to help do more of that. And there's lots of research on it. So it's not just doing a bunch of tasks that make you great at that task, like you mentioned earlier. It's building up the areas of your brain so that it translates over or transfers over to your real life experiences.
Beautiful.
And I couple it with other traditional therapy techniques too. So,
do you know if there's any way people on the outside can get a hold of that kind of information or do those kind of exercises?
You said how they can?
Just people who are wanting any kind of engagement in that kind of stuff. What would you recommend? Any particular exercises?
Or where they could go to, to get training. Yes. There's not a lot of people who do it. It's a much, like a niche. So it's a smaller amount of people who do this, but Pearson has on their website a lot of people who do one of the types of cognitive remediation.
Nice.
Called CogMed, and you can find a CogMed provider. I believe I'm listed on there, and the one other provider who does it at my practice is listed on there too. You can find the people who do that service. It's not a lot. It's not a lot.
It's not a lot of what?
Of providers who offer that particular cognitive remediation. There's a few other types too, but that's the main one because Pearson is really big.
Yeah. Yeah, that name rings a bell. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's for
the
sure.
Pearson, they make a lot of the testing.
Yeah.
The tests, the test, period, the protocols. So.
Yeah, that GRE. How about that?
Sorry. Sorry.
What about it? It's not, it's not my favorite test out there.
Yeah. I'm not a test person, period. I do them because they're necessary evils to what I need to do. But
that's true.
That's me.
Yeah. One of those brain myths that just continues is this damn idea that we only use 10% of our brain. That's an awful one. It's so untrue.
It is very untrue. I mean, if you aren't using your brain and you're not doing much with it, then maybe you're using less of your brain. But we use all of our brain.
Yeah.
I don't
remember this different times.
And it's in it's not in a rap. I say something from a rap by Lil Wayne that says I'm focused, I'm thinking like I got two brains. And then I remember posting that on Facebook one time. And one of my cousins, I think, said, well, that means you're using 20% of your brain because I was like, oh gosh, please.
Here we go again. That's great.
I'm using 200% of my brain. That's what it means.
I like Lil Wayne. I remember he was really big when I was in college. I loved his sound. Oh my God.
I was not a Lil Wayne fan until I was working on my doctorate degree, where I feel like I had to balance off the seriousness. So then I had more foolishness in my life. So I had more junky music, which Lil Wayne was one of them.
Who are some of your other favorite musicians? Or just, in general?
Some of my favorite music people?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just love, I'm so into gospel right now. So that's what I was listening to like on my way to work before this whole quarantine. And that's what I was listening to the most. But I love the 90s music. So pretty much anybody back from the 90s for more dance type music. And then I love Kirk Franklin. I love more like the popular gospel music artists. CeCe Winans is one of my favorite. And so her and her brother together for BB and CeCe Winans for gospel.
So cool.
I will listen to anything that they sing. When she opens her mouth, I will listen. So those are some of the ones. But a lot of the popular gospel music artists. And I don't even know some of their names. I'm just listening and I know the words when I'm going to work or coming home, but that's my favorite. So that's spiritual.
Awesome. I remember hearing Kirk Franklin a lot when I was younger. He's hilarious because he's great, but he and Plies, the rapper, I think they're both in Atlanta. I know Plies is. They were having like a talk and it's funny. Like he's not afraid to associate with other musicians and talk to them.
No. Yeah, no. And that's real being secure. That's real security. And Missy Elliott and Busta Rhymes. Those are my favorites.
Missy Elliott. Let's go now.
Yes.
The beat, I love when she has the EDM type bass in there. Oh my gosh, because that's one of my favorite genres. Like when you get really fast paced too and put some rap over it, that's awesome. She was a real pioneer. I think she's done some new stuff. I should know that. It sounds
different, but I still like it. But the old stuff is the best because she's changed her sound up a little bit. So
yeah, you're right. The old stuff hits better.
For me, I don't know. The younger people might like it.
Oh man, Kanye, his whole gospel album, it had some pretty interesting. He got some real gospel musicians for that. Did you listen to that?
I've heard a couple of them, and I like it. I think I like it better. I hope Snoop Dogg doesn't take any offense to this if he happens to hear this at some point. But I like his better than Snoop Dogg's. He did a gospel one, and it's okay. I think those artists could have just did those songs on their own.
Yeah. So I like. Oh my God, Snoop Dogg's another great one. God, he has become such an interesting character because he did the Martha Stewart crossover. Like they'll do.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah.
He's a part of American culture in
Yeah,
every
he
fact.
was the G rap, gangster rap takeover of the early 90s that got rid of a lot of the kind of more, I don't know, different directions of stuff. I watched this thing called Train Records by this YouTuber who goes over like bad records. And so do you remember what is the name of it? Do you remember Arrested Development, that rap group?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Their second album like killed their career because it got way too, you could say sanctimonious, maybe. Other people have said that, like Rolling Stone.
I didn't even know they had a second one. That's how bad it did.
Exactly.
I didn't even know.
Well, and so then they were like peaking in the early 90s, and then gangster rap came and kind of just that whole conscious rap. Like that's come back. A lot of people like Logic dabbles in that. He does a lot of that kind of stuff. You know, the rapper, he gets into stuff about like depression and messages to it. But for a while, it was Snoop Dogg and Dre and a lot of gangsta stuff, which is great. But
yeah, I didn't really follow that back in the day, the gangster rap. So
yeah, it'd be interesting to do like a whole seminar on mental health messages in those songs, or maybe the lack of them. I don't know. Good boundaries, like don't F with me.
Talking about setting boundaries, hard boundaries.
Hard, hell yeah, that's really funny. Okay, so where can, just to kind of cover our bases, because I want to give you a chance here. So you're doing a podcast. You go on Facebook Live a lot. You've got a Facebook business page.
Mm-hmm.
Remind people, like, do you have any projects coming up that you want to remind people of, or things where they can find you?
Soon people will be able to find and work with me at drcatherinejackson.com. So it's just the spelling of my name with DR before it.
Okay.
Because I'm launching my own private practice where I will provide teletherapy and online coaching, mostly based off of nutritional coaching.
Right.
And speaking services too. And then I have a book that should have come out this month for Mental Health Awareness Month, but I pushed it with the pandemic. I said, I'm not going to put it out right now. Everybody's trying to figure out life. So I'm pushing it back to the summertime. And
Okay.
so when we got into that conversation about knowing your resources that are out there and knowing, feeling knowledgeable when you're looking for a therapist, that covers from A to Z how to find a therapist and have a good therapy experience. So
I'm really excited for that. I'll be happy.
I'm excited too, and I'm tired of people coming into my direct messages asking me the information, so I put it all in a book. So
and you had people who were adding you as a friend.
Yeah.
Who were just like, come like my page.
Oh gosh.
That's not friendship.
Now that's something else. So other people who actually, we interact all the time, will come in and ask me all these questions for mental health, or where to find a therapist, or, this and that about mental health. Now I will have one place where I can direct them. It's all going to be in the book. But that what you're talking about is annoying. People who just friend you and then they send you like all their millions of different pages that they have without ever just saying hello to you. I'm like, okay, I haven't even had a chance to look at one of your posts, and
Stop
I've gotten
the spam.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Boundaries.
basically.
I'm glad I checked my notes one last time, because I looked down to the bottom and there was one thing I wanted to ask you, and I will preface this already because I'm used to the legalese game here of you're not prescribing, you're not offering medical advice. Anything people do is up to them. But that being said, do you have any favorite supplements or things that you think work on that level for brain health?
For brain health, I don't usually talk a lot about the supplements. I probably should, but I don't. I am more of a natural person. And so I just think if you want to up your fuel for your brain, just a really good multivitamin is all I usually will suggest. Unless somebody has something specific going on, then we could talk about a specific supplement. I'm not altogether sure some of these quote unquote brain supplements that are out there are actually helping.
That's because you'd be right. Yeah, they don't always.
Yeah,
They don't.
I don't know that the research is really supporting that they're actually doing what they claim to do. So I'm hesitant to say anything with the.
Oh, I just thought of Steve Harvey. Oh man, good answer. Good answer. You know what I'm talking about? I didn't even mean to think of that, but I'm like, he's got so many videos, compilations of.
Get a lot of whatever a supplement is saying naturally from what we eat. So that is my route. That's the route I take. Now, if somebody has something specific and they need to get some advances more quickly, then I talk about that with them and what the proven supplements might be for that specific thing. And that shouldn't be something you have to do forever either. So
I love that. That's wonderful. See, everybody, this is what you're going to be getting. You're going to be getting some quality stuff in this new book that comes in. So what's something that you've learned as a marriage and family therapist? Because I know you got an MFT emphasis. What's something surprising you learned, or something you didn't expect to see as much of, or anything like that? Open-ended question here about families, couple, all that kind of stuff. God bless you for it too, for emphasizing.
Like I said, couples and family work is some of the hardest work. It's some of the most fun work too, but it is hard. I often have to have a little bit of a breather when couples and families leave. But I think the thing that is the most surprising is that people come in with one person identified as the problem.
Yes.
And in fact, that person might be the real problem, or the interaction between everybody is really the problem, but everybody wants to come in to fix the other person or one person. And they don't see how much of what they need to fix with themselves and how that plays into helping that one person that they think is the patient.
How do you have that conversation? Well, okay, so I'll just say you wrote it. You guessed it in an article about like how to tell someone you love to go to therapy. So that's great. People can find answers there. Like, how do you switch that around to tactfully let the person who thinks they have everything figured out know, well, maybe you have a role to play too?
I try to start with kid gloves. I'm going to be honest. I try. We're going to emphasize try. I try to start with kid gloves, but sometimes you got to put on the big gloves because people are just not hearing you. And I try to just start with, we wouldn't want this person, if that's going to be the identified person. They can't make these changes if, they can't make all these changes and they've learned all these skills if something doesn't change in the environment too. So then I try to encourage them to also change how they respond to the new, identified person. But they don't always hear it. So sometimes you got to hit them over the head with it a little bit harder and be more direct with it. But I always try to start more softly.
Yeah, I don't think you could have said that any better. I mean, you have to reinforce positive change. So recruiting that other person to say, well, you got to reward and reinforce your partner here is beautiful, because then you're essentially saying you have to change to be nicer, but in such a wonderfully adaptive way. So
yeah, because or else we're still looking for that person. Like, you're still responding to that person as if they're still doing the things you didn't want or you didn't like. And then they've changed and you're not noticing it. So you have to change something too. So that's the way I try to go with it. I can't say it always goes over well because families come with a lot of dynamics, and so do couples.
That's the truth. Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. It's difficult because you see that idea of the paradox of preaching to the choir, where you get people who, I've gotten clients like this, who chronically want to fix everything about themselves, and they have such a sort of dependent personality, either disorder or tendencies, where they are trying to find the answer inside, where the answer is, what are you doing? How are you interfacing with people on the outside? What kind of people are you accepting in your life? And you see that a lot with trauma survivors who've taken it inward, like, and identified with the abuser, where they're like, you're right, I'm broken. I need to find something. I need to keep doing better and better. It's like, well, you also have to embrace your boundaries and your flaws and say, okay, I'm a great person as is. I need to accept better treatment. And that's tough because you're arguing you're having to align against that dependency or that very insecure state where people don't ever feel good enough. And then they often get with the abusive types. You know how that goes.
Yeah. 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 Domestic violence. Yes.
Yeah, that absolutely. Verbal too. And I think also people can be so confused about what verbal abuse entails. So verbal abuse isn't someone setting boundaries with you. So people who have a good ability to twist things can say, oh, well, that's verbally abusive. It's like, well, did they call you names? Did they threaten you? Did they threaten divorce if you didn't do what they want? It's like, okay, well, maybe then we're talking about just not what you want to hear, right? But on the other hand, like outright consistent verbal messages of you're not good enough. This is why someone did something to you. It's like, wow, that's outright abusive.
Yeah.
Like you got to look for what makes something verbally abusive. Do you ever use the fair fighting rules? You heard of those? The
what fighting rules?
fair fighting rules by Dr. Nathan Cobb. He's a big feeling person. He's like, no name calling, no talk of divorce.
I don't think I've
Yeah.
Yeah, I know I'm not using it strictly. Like the no name calling is kind of a common sense one that shows up in every family. Like we're not gonna call names. We're not gonna. It's time to be. That's a common sense one. But yeah, I feel like I've learned about him, but I can't say that I'm using his actual points.
What do you think about Gottman family therapy?
That's one that I use and love.
The four horsemen of relationship apocalypse, right?
Yeah, when you get to that resentment, you're in trouble.
Right. Contempt, defensiveness.
I think it's the contempt that's the worst. It's a contempt or resentment. But yeah, you're in trouble when you get to those.
Well, I mean, when you completely hate someone as an entire entity, it's like what, as a therapist, your goal there is to help someone get in touch with their love for their significant other, but they have to be willing to do that and say, okay, well, how are we thinking about this person? Why does everything they do annoy you? And how can we be curious about, well, what would it look like to kind of try to embrace one thing about your partner? But I think people can wait so long to go in for therapy, which is always good to go in no matter what. I'm not saying that, but I will say once it gets to a point where you absolutely loathe someone, you're going to have to do some work if you want to keep the relationship. It's
almost hard to if both people are not committed to it at that point. And you asked me, well, what's something, that's one of the things that's one of the hardest things when you're trying to work on either with couples or in a family when really the couple is the problem and not so much the kid as they were thinking. And they just shut you down and they don't want to work on it. I don't want to do anything with the relationship, with the mother-father relationship. They don't want to do anything there. And it all cuts me off at the knees to be able to help them. Your kids see your interaction, and if they see that you're not interacting well together, that impacts them. And to ask them and to expect them to make all these grand changes is unfair.
100%. So as we wrap up here, just reminding the audience, you've got an awesome book coming out. You're you're posting great stuff on Facebook. You're on Twitter. I'll link to that. Twitter's really good, by the way, for networking with a lot of mental health professionals. That's how I found a lot of my guests. So, but Facebook is better for video and stuff because you can go live. You can do that on Twitter too, but
Twitter has live now. I keep saying I'm gonna go back to Twitter used to be my favorite social media. And I don't know what happened, but then Instagram became my favorite. And I use Facebook a lot because I just seem to have a bigger audience and more engaged audience than Instagram. But it's a lot of work. It's a lot trying to keep up all these pieces. So
it totally is,
do it and find you.
Yes, you want people to find you. So I'll link to the Instagram too. Thank you for reminding me of that. I don't think I'm not on Instagram that much, but that's going to change. So anyway, all right. Well, anything you want to conclude with that you can think of, anything to add? If not, that's totally fine. But
no, you already asked me like where people can find me. What yeah, no.
I appreciate it.
I feel like it's way too much. They're going to be tired of me.
No, you're fine. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This was great.
Thank you for